Das ist das Geheimnis der Propaganda. Den die Propaganda erfassen will, ganz mit den Ideen der Propaganda zu durchdringen, ohne dass er überhaupt merkt. Selbstverständlich hat die Propaganda eine Absicht, aber die Absicht muss so klug und so virtuos kaschiert sein, dass der von dieser Absicht erfüllt werden soll, das überhaupt nicht bemerkt.
For over 2 years now, we've heard about nonstop investigations either involving the president directly, his campaign, Russia, tax fraud, campaign finance fraud. We've heard about a special counsel, which is something that we very rarely have and happen in this country.
A woman's lawsuit alleging Donald Trump raped her when she was 13 will soon get a hearing before a judge, but not until after the presidential election. The woman has alleged the GOP presidential candidate and billionaire perv Jeffrey Epstein assaulted her at a series of sex parties that Epstein threw in 1994.
The New York Times for its story that accuses him of groping 2 women in the past. The GOP nominee took to Twitter this morning to write, and I quote, "The phony story in the failing New York Times is a total fabrication written by the same people as last discredited story."
Sharp accusations today from President Trump's former attorney during intense testimony on Capitol Hill.
Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to lying to Congress last year, but today he says he's telling the truth. Cohen claims the president ordered him to pay off porn stars and orchestrated a Moscow construction project, all from the Oval Office.
It's another one of those nights where they've just handed me something from the New York Times that has come out in the last half hour. I'd like to begin here in our New York studios with Barrett, as this is another legal matter. And Barrett, the headline is New York Attorney General opens investigation of Trump projects. The first graph, roughly this. The New York, again, State Attorney General's office late on Monday issued subpoenas to Deutsche Bank and Investors Bank for records relating to the financing of 4 major Trump Organization projects.
A legal theory that has long been whispered about by legal experts and veteran prosecutors has spilled out into the open in the wake of Michael Cohen's explosive testimony. The possibility that Donald Trump and the Trump Organization are being investigated as a criminal enterprise.
New polling that finds more Americans than not believe the president is engaged in criminal activity.
Yeah, good morning, Mika. When asked by the Quinnipiac University poll, did President Trump commit crimes before becoming president, 64% of voters say yes, the president did. Only 24% say he did not.
Bewegung ohne die Propaganda geworden. Und wohin geriete unser Staat, wenn nicht eine wirklich schöpferische Propaganda ihm heute noch das geistige Gesicht gäbe?
Reaganism in the 80s, when he started talking about welfare queens. He's painting this like really resentful vision of essentially black women who were doing nothing, that were sucks on our country, right? That's not explicit racism, but still rooted in a racist caricature.
As Senator Graham made his presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions, and in the course of his comments, said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist.
Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they aren't racist. And it is insensitive that some would even say it's the fact that someone would actually use a prop, a black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself.
Russia, knee-deep in our democracy. An all-out war on environmental protection. A Justice Department rolling back civil rights by the day. Hatred and supremacy, proudly marching in our streets.
Fuck you and fuck the police!
Last month, Evergreen State College in Washington went crazy when a professor of evolutionary biology named Brett Weinstein objected to a day of absence when white students and faculty were asked to voluntarily leave campus. Weinstein branded it a form of racial segregation. A group of student protesters called him a racist. Weinstein has taught at Evergreen State for 14 years. He describes himself as deeply progressive, but has been denounced as a racist tool of the alt-right by some students and faculty. Weinstein objected to the day of absence in a formal protest email to colleagues, arguing that, quote, one's right to speak or to be must never be based on skin color. Calls for his resignation followed.
It says, "Make America Great Again." They now call it the MAGA hat. This is a Ku Klux Klan hood. They used to terrorize freed African Americans in those. Different shapes, eras, purposes. However,
this Make America Great Again hat is just as maddening and frustrating and triggering for me to look at as a KKK hood.
One school is facing backlash as it stands by its decision to stop flying flags on campus, including the American flag. 1,000 veterans gathered at Hampshire College in Massachusetts on Sunday to protest the decision, which was made following an incident where students allegedly burned the American flag on campus to protest the presidential election results.
Ich bin der festen Überzeugung, der Frieden in Europa muss erhalten bleiben. Ich bin weiterhin der festen Überzeugung, käme ein Krieg, wäre das größte Unglück für die Welt.
What does the new Germany think of economic developments in its states?
Wir betrachten die wirtschaftliche Entwicklung in Amerikas mit dem allergrößten positiven Interesse.
Let's turn to the president's State of the Union. President Trump renewed his call last night for a barrier on the southern border. Last week, you said that a border wall has become a, quote, racist symbol of the Trump administration's policies. Do you believe President Trump is racist?
Yes, I do.
And Wolf, let's remember, this is a president who's called those asylum seekers, some of those asylum seekers, animals. He's talked about this as an infestation. He's described immigrants from Mexico as rapists and criminals. Last night, he says they are not our best, or they're not the best from those countries who are sending them here. There's a strong racist element to this policy.
He said these hate-filled things, and he said them repeatedly. He said, Haitians, do we need more Haitians? And then he went on and we started to describe the immigration from Africa that was being protected in this bipartisan measure. That's when he used these vile and vulgar comments, calling the nations they come from shitholes.
President Trump plans to visit California next week for the first time in office. While he's there, he's expected to discuss his administration's lawsuit to overturn sanctuary policies in that state. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the lawsuit in Sacramento yesterday. California's governor called it an act of war. John Blackstone is in San Francisco. John, good morning.
Good morning. Well, about 21% of America's undocumented immigrants live here in California. The lawsuit asked the federal court to block 3 state laws, which the Department of Justice says interfere with federal immigration activities and are unconstitutional.
It grew with every suffragette step, every freedom rider's voice, and with every weary soul we welcome to our shores. And to all the dreamers out there watching tonight, let me be absolutely clear. Ustedes son parte de nuestra historia. Vamos a luchar por ustedes y no nos vamos a alejar. You are part of our story. We will fight for you, and we will not walk away.
What's unclear is if they stand any chance, these migrants, of penetrating the border, crossing that wall on the other side, because this is a hardened, fortified border. This is the part where there actually is a wall, and I would be very surprised if they're able to get through that.
Stellt eine infektiöse Erscheinung dar, die ansteckend wirkt. Deutschland jedenfalls hat nicht die Absicht, sich dieser jüdischen Bedrohung zu beugen, sondern vielmehr die, ihr rechtzeitig, wenn nötig, unter vollkommener und radikalster Ausschaltung des Judentums entgegenzutreten.
I've been saying this for a while now. I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's important. We white Americans need to do a better job of listening when African Americans talk about the seen and unseen barriers you face every day. We need to recognize our privilege and practice humility, rather than assume that our experiences are everyone's experiences.
Joining us now from New York is Michael Skolnick, the editor-in-chief of globalgrind.com. Michael, thank you. Do you agree that there is such a thing, and we've been hearing a lot about it now, as white privilege? Is that real?
Of course it's real, and I'm white and I have it. I can walk in the street in New York City and put my hand out and no taxi will pass me by. I can walk in the street and no woman's going to grab their purse in fear of me. I can walk into a restaurant and no one's going to ask me to pay before I eat. I can walk through my neighborhood and no one's going to call 911 and say I look suspicious.
Outside a bar in Calgary, Canada, an Indigenous woman yelled, "I hate white people," and then punched a white woman in the face. And a judge has just ruled that it was not a hate crime.
Police released this surveillance video of a black woman wearing a baby blue coat. She's believed to have targeted 7 people, all white.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
We're talking about bullying before, but apparently the latest group who feels bullied are white people. 55% of them say they believe there is discrimination against white people in America. But when asked for specific examples, they couldn't quite say what they thought it was. So what do you think white people are worried about in terms of being discriminated against?
I'm very confused by it.
I'm not asking you.
What are you asking? The white